Hey guys, Cameron here. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Payroll Protection Program and the EIDL. Here are 5 things you need to know about the Payroll Protection Program. So now this isn't all the information that you're going to need to know because one, not everyone has all the information and not everyone knows exactly what's going on in every single area of these government stimulus aid programs. And the reason that is because things are changing by the day. Even in the loan documents that I've seen for the Payroll Protection Program, there is verbiage in there indicating that the government can change things later down the road, which makes me a little bit nervous. But anyway, today I'm going to tell you what I know right now, and I'd just like you to keep in mind that at any given time, things are subject to change. The first thing I want to discuss is that the Payroll Protection Program is indeed active at the moment. There is funding at the moment. It was re-injected this past Monday, April 27th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when they started taking applications again. Okay, so with that in mind, I just want to touch on one quick thing real quick. You can apply for it, both it and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. As of right now, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, I do not believe there's a link up on the SBA website. If you do want to apply for it, when that link comes back up, you should be able to go to sba.gov, and whenever the link populates again, you can apply for it then and there. But at this moment in time, it appears that you can apply for both. We'll get into the specifics here in a second in regards to how you need to allocate the different funds that you may receive from both and how that all works. So another thing I wanted to note on before we move on to the second thing is it does appear, based off of my clients' funding that I'm seeing right now, that they are working through past applications for both the EIDL loans in regards to the grants and also in regards to the Payroll Protection Program. For instance, I had a client that applied for the Payroll Protection Program the day before funding ran out the first time. He was able to take that existing application and still run it through the system to work on getting funding for the next round when it was re-injected this past week. Okay, so moving on to the second thing in regards to the Payroll Protection Program, there's been some misinformation floating around and there was a lot of confusion in early April in regards to this, but who can apply for the Payroll Protection Program and can you get funds if you are, like, for instance, a sole proprietor or independent contractor? The answer to that question is yes. So typically what they're going to be looking for, if you go to the SBA website, and I'll make sure to include a link below, it gives you the criteria for who is eligible. Okay, it would be a company that has 500 employees or less. It would be independent contractors, sole proprietors, self-employed people. So let's say that you own a tile company and you're a one-man show. You should be eligible for that. Maybe you were a handyman. You can show that you were a sole proprietor over the past year. You are eligible for those funds at the moment. Now, I would always advise that you speak to either your lender or an accountant before making any moves, but it doesn't hurt to go ask your lender, hey, am I eligible for this? And they will just tell you yes or no right then and there. But essentially back in early April, when the program first released, independent contractors, sole proprietors didn't have access to the funding until a little bit later on. I think it was April 10th or around there when sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed people had access in regards to being able to apply for the Payroll Protection Program funds. Third one that I saw on the website in regards to the criteria, and there may be more, is SBA approved businesses that do have 500 or more employees. So they have to meet SBA requirements in order to apply for the Payroll Protection Program. So when in doubt, call your lender, see if this is applicable to you and your particular set of circumstances. I just wanted to make sure that people understand that they may be eligible for these funds and they just don't know it yet. So anyway, that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. So moving on to the third thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is in regards to the type of lender you should work with if you do want to apply. So some reports coming in from clients that have not received funding yet, or really just various people that I see on Facebook or whatever that are business owners that haven't received funding yet, they're getting frustrated. And what I see to be kind of the general consensus, and this isn't for all people who haven't received funding yet, but I have seen this a lot. If you use a lender that is not accessible, that you cannot call and reach out to them, and you're not really on a first name basis with anybody in the office, I'm finding that people are having infinitely more trouble getting access to those funds. So the third thing that I would suggest, and this is really a tip or trick, is find a local bank that has somebody that you can call and talk to on a first name basis that can help push your application through, walk you through the process, make sure that you're well informed. Because again, a lot of what I'm seeing is person A applies through a bigger lender, has to do it online and doesn't really talk to anybody as they're applying for the Payroll Protection Program. And then person B ends up applying a week later and ends up getting funding while person A still hasn't received it yet. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So that would be something that I would encourage you to do if you're struggling getting funding at this time. So the fourth thing I wanted to talk about is more in regards to the spending of the funds after an applicant has been accepted, and how do they take in the funds, what do they do with them, how do they track them, all that good stuff. So first and foremost, the thing I want to touch on, and this is on the SBA website as of right now, and all lenders that I've spoken to, this seems to be the general consensus, is that 75% of the funds that you receive in that loan from the Payroll Protection Program have to be spent on payroll in order to be deemed forgivable. Okay, so that means the other 25% can fall into the other criteria. I believe the criteria at this time is like mortgage interest, utilities, and other various business expenses. Now, I would make sure to go back and check both the website in regards to the criteria and speak to your lender about where to allocate the rest of those funds if you don't intend to spend the whole 100% on payroll. So another thing I want you to keep in mind, and I touched on this briefly earlier, if you received grant money from the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, I would encourage you to think about how you're going to spend that money before you go and spend it in any area of your business. And what I mean by that is, what I have been getting told is that you don't want to spend your economic injury disaster loan grant on payroll because there could be some conflict there if you received both the PPP money and the EIDL money. Okay, so you really want to allocate payroll protection program money to payroll and use the economic injury disaster loan money towards other various expenses in your business. Now, again, before you go and spend that money on anything, you want to make sure that you're spending it on the things that fall into the criteria as listed on the SBA website. And I would also talk to your accountant before that too. You can discuss the economic injury disaster loan with your lender, but they may not know a whole lot in regards to the actual spending criteria for it. So, but again, I just make sure to touch base with your accountant and go check out the SBA website to make sure that you're spending that money in the correct spot. Cool. Okay. The last thing I wanted to discuss, and I think that this is something that some business owners are not really putting a whole lot of focus on. I don't know if it's just kind of pushed to the back of their mind or what the deal is, but there really doesn't seem to be enough caution in regards to how you need to track these expenses, okay? So I think the general consensus for a lot of people is, hey, I'll just have my 941s, or hey, I'll just have some type of tax document showing I kept so-and-so employed or that I'm employed, etc. But I always err on the side of caution in regards to when you're working with federal dollars. So one thing that I would encourage you to do, and one lender pointed this out to me, he's overly cautious about this because he wants to make sure that his clients aren't going to have a multitude of problems in the upcoming months. But here are a couple tips in regards to tracking your expenses to make sure that you're going to give yourself the best chance of having the least amount of headache with the SBA and the government in general. Okay. So number one, I would make sure to have an Excel spreadsheet that documents the date and the amounts that come in and out of the account in regards to the payroll protection funding that you received. So when did it come to the account? What was the amount? Okay, what did I spend it on? Here's the thing I spent it on. Here's the date I spent it on. And just making sure that you've got all your amounts right. So that way, if the government walks in and they say, hey, we want to know exactly how you spent this money, you have an Excel spreadsheet on file that says, hey, I've got it documented electronically. It shows the date, shows what I spent it on, shows when I got it, when I released it, etc. Okay, so with that in mind, I've got a couple other things that I'd like to mention too. One would be to make sure that you have a digital record of all the transactions from your bank statements to show the government in the case that they say, hey, we want to be able to see, not this Excel spreadsheet is great, but it's not exactly sufficient. We want to see exactly when it came in and out of the account. I would just keep a record for your own safety. Now, is this overkill? Possibly, and some might say that, but with the vagueness of the SBA and how much everything has been changing, I would err on the side of caution in regards to tracking these expenses. There's always red tape involved with federal dollars, and it can be a double-edged sword at times for that reason. So anyway, the other thing that this lender, and this may be really overkill for some of y'all, but he had suggested making a paper trail. And what does he mean by that? He means writing checks. So like, for instance, if you have payroll protection program, you have employees that you can pay with checks, write a physical check to them so that way you've got that on file, that you wrote that check, that money was absolutely allocated from your payroll protection program funds, handed it over to my employee, they cashed it, there you go. But it is all about documentation in regards to making sure that you're not going to have these headaches come up later. So anyway, I know that doesn't explain everything in regards to the payroll protection program, but anyway, I'm going to attempt to try and put more of these videos up in the upcoming days and weeks because I know that there is a need to try and clear up some of this confusion. And generally speaking, I would think that these videos may not be necessary at this point with how much content is on the internet, but man, I was in a territory about a week ago, and I had some people, and I called them up and said, hey, had you applied for the payroll protection program, the EIDL? They didn't have a clue what I was talking about. They wanted to know information. They wanted to know how to apply. They didn't know they had to go through their lender through the payroll protection program. They had no idea how to apply for the EIDL. So I want to make sure to be able to help other small business owners at this time, especially small mom and pop shops. Because if history has taught us anything in regards to working with federal dollars in regards to funds for stimulus, it doesn't seem to get to the small mom and pop shops as much as it does bigger companies. And this first time around with funding perfectly was indicative of that. It did not work the way that it was intended to work. So the more people that I can reach with these types of videos, the better. And hopefully this was of some benefit to you. Feel free to leave a comment if you have a question about any of it. I'll be happy to help. You know, I don't know everything, but I would certainly be happy to help you out, or at least get you to a resource that can answer your question. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, I'll be trying to post more of this content up over the next couple days and in the future. This channel, as of right now, this is the only video, and it's going to really revolve around real estate, but obviously right now the hot topic is stimulus aid. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys.